I'll be sitting when the evening comes, watching the ships roll in. Then I watch them in away again. Oh, yeah. Sitting in the dock of the bay, waiting the tide roll away. Sitting on the dock of the bay, wasting time. What's up, Andre?
What's happening? What's happening? What's happening?
Oh, man, I love me some Otis Redding. Welcome to the Greatness Machine, my brother. How you doing?
It's a pleasure to be here.
Man, I've been looking forward to this for many, many months. Guys, welcome to the Greatness Machine. I'm your host, Darius Mirshahzadeh. Boy, do we have a special guest today. My main man, Andre Norman, is in the house. What's up, Andre?
You know how we do. Man. It's an East Coast thing.
Dude, East Coast, West Coast, which is the best coast? I don't know, man.
East Coast.
I'm West Coast.
Hey, listen, I'm sorry to hear that.
All right. Hey, I want to give your bio. Is that cool? Can we jump into that?
Let's rock.
All right. So Andre and I met briefly. Andre is out of the East Coast. He's in Atlanta, but we met up at MIT in Boston, and he's a speaker, has an amazing story, and he came. You just came to come hang out. You weren't even speaking when we met. You were just coming and hanging out with the GOT crew. So all you guys know who listen to the show know that I'm all about the GOT, Gathering of Titans, and Andre's a speaker from that. He came to hang out. We met. We actually had a cool conversation about real estate. One of his friends was doing a bunch of real estate in South Carolina, and we got to hang out around the fire, just kick back, have a few drinks. But I was like, man, I really like this guy. I want to learn more about him. And so when I launched the Greatness Machine, which is those of you guys who know, the Greatness Machine, we're about two things. People are living their passions, and those that are creating greatness in the world. And my man, Andre here, you're doing both those things. So we're going to be talking about that. But that's how we met. I always like to kind of start the bios off with that. With that said, I do want to give your formal bio. So guys, Andre, he grew up in the inner cities of Boston, struggled with poverty and illiteracy, and he eventually found himself involved with gangs, violence, and a 100-year prison sentence. Damn. And in the first 6 years, he immersed himself in prison culture, gaining status and recognition within the system. And this led to him being placed in solitary confinement for 2 years. And during this time, he decided to turn his life around, and he managed to be released from prison after serving 14 years. Andre is now an author, speaker, and mentor, and he currently runs the Academy of Hope, a violence reduction prison-based program. So, man, I'm so lucky to have you here, brother. Thank you for coming.
Oh, man, listen, you know, with GOT, you call, we show up.
And exactly. And it's such a great network, and it pumps out so many cool, like, relationships, and the speaker network is second to none. I don't know if you know this, so I'm actually the chairman this year for it. So I'm organizing it this year. But man, so
I might be being invited back to speak.
Oh, hey, listen, I might have to. We have to go there.
I got some new stuff. It's been a while. I spoke. It's been a while since I spoke there.
Well, let's chop that up, man. So, dude, 100-year sentence?
It was a total of 100. I had a 7 to 10, 2 9 to 10s, 2 10s, 2 15 to 20s, then a 5. And while I was inside, I picked up 2 more 5s for attempted murder.
Wow.
So it came out to like 107.
Oh, so I want to back up, man. So you grew up in the inner cities. You know, obviously that's a pretty like gnarly system to grow up in. Do you mind kind of giving us your backstory?
I mean, born in Boston, Massachusetts. My mom married a high school sweetheart. He went to prison for robbing banks. She meets my dad, a local drug dealer. She has 6 kids total between the two. Wow. I'm number 5. And life is good except for my dad had a habit of beating my mom because that's how he communicated. Once we get past that, I get old enough to go to school. Now I'm getting rocks thrown at me, and I'm going to call a nigga because I'm a black kid trying to go to school during the busing crisis in Boston. Mm-hmm. And once we get past that, if that's not enough, my dad and mom finally split up. She had enough, and he leaves. And so I went from, like, I came home one day, and he was just gone. And nobody ever explained to me why. I found out later, but so as a young kid, I'm 9 years old. I got 3 lessons that I live by. It's okay to hit people. You better protect yourself, and you can quit anytime. And that's just how I live my life. And I went through school. I mean, when I went to school, not being able to read wasn't a problem. There's a thing called a dummy class. Took all the kids, stick you in the room, close the door, and they just left you. So you couldn't read, write, or count. Nobody cared. Because what I didn't understand then, but I know now, is in the 3rd grade when I couldn't read, they built a prison cell for me. Because the government says if you can't pass 3rd grade math and science, you're most likely not going to graduate high school, which means you'll be in the street without a job or a career, which means you're going to commit crime. So we need a cell for you. So unbeknownst to me, in the 3rd grade, the state had decided to build a cell for me. And I just did everything I could to get there. So I dropped out of band. I dropped out of leadership. I started hanging with gangs. And I just got on this track that comes with being illiterate, that comes with being uneducated, that comes with being unmotivated. And I walked that school to prison pipeline.
Wow.
Put up at the prison door, as expected.
So how old were you when you got into gang culture?
6th grade, so like 11.
And so, I mean, I grew up in a very different environment, but intellectually I understand it, that like you're probably looking to belong and for safety. And
no, I mean, when I was in 6th grade, I was poor, and kids made fun of us for being poor. I was on free lunch. I had old clothes. I didn't have cool stuff, and I just hated being made fun of. They made fun of me every single day because I couldn't afford to pay for my own lunch, and I had to wear old clothes. So when I got the opportunity to go to the park and hustle and sell weed, and through that I could buy my own stuff, I jumped on it. It was a team thing for me. I wasn't lonely. I probably might have been lonely or depressed, but my main motivator was
money.
Why the kids making fun of me because I didn't have the cool stuff.
So you're 12 years old. You're in 6th grade. You're like, fuck this. Like, I'm not like you got, there's, and were you in a school that was like middle class, upper middle class, like lower?
Like, any city school, poor people. I'm saying 80% of the kids on free or reduced lunch. If the other 20 probably qualified, didn't qualify, but barely. I mean, it was just a regular inner city school in America.
So those kids were still making fun of each other the way kids do. And you were just like, fuck this. You're like, okay, I have a better idea. How about I go make my own money? And like, my parents aren't going to buy me this stuff. I'll buy it for myself.
Exactly.
And so you started making money. Did that solve that problem for you?
It definitely solved their problem because I could buy the cool clothes. I could pay for my own lunch. I could go, like, we used to all go to the store before school. And everybody went to the store before school. You buy your popcorn, you buy your Snicker bar, whatever you buy. I couldn't buy anything. I used to have to steal stuff. So now I could go in the store and buy stuff. It was just like, okay, Dre's accepted. He can, it was just a bag of popcorn and Snicker bars and some sodas, but it made a difference.
So you started hustling, you started making some money, and then so my question for you is that starts to escalate. I take it.
Once you get on the wrong path, you're on the wrong path. I got on the wrong path, even though I had good intentions or I had good motivation, but I'm on the wrong path. And I was a small guy on the wrong path, but I was nonetheless on the wrong path.
So you said you were one of 6. What were your siblings doing?
My younger brother, he was still in elementary school, so he didn't know we were poor. My older sister, my older sisters were like, we grew up in a house of 6 kids, but everybody's kind of on their own. So me and my older brother went to the same school, but we never really spoke.
Wow.
Our house was like kind of every man for themselves. It was like the mentality.
So at what age, how old are you the first time you got arrested?
The first time I got arrested I didn't get arrested in the 8th grade. The first time the police came and they sat us down. I was in the 8th grade, so I was probably like 13. The first time I got arrested, I was 14.
So you were so it's funny. So I was the first time I had the cops ever like basically come to our house, I was 13 too. But same shit, because boys that are bored do stupid shit, right?
Yeah.
Difference is I grew up in upper middle class, and like, you know, it stops there, right? You have those safety nets, right?
Yeah. No nets. There's no nets in the hood.
No, exactly.
Basketball, there's no net in the hood.
Yeah. So you're 13. Cops show up. What'd you do? Shoplift or something stupid?
No. I got mad at the teacher A teacher pissed me off in the 8th grade. So we literally broke all the windows in the school except for one classroom.
No way. What'd you break them with?
We just went outside, got bricks, and just see.
No.
Back in the days, there were screens on the outside of the window.
Right.
To throw the brick enough times to dent the screen in so it leaned against the glass.
Oh.
Then we break it so the rock never went through the window. We had to throw the brick like 3 or 4 times. It would dent the screen. Then the 5th time it would break the glass.
Right. So they already have protective coverings on there, but you're like, oh, I don't give a shit. I'll break that thing anyway.
I broke every window except for one teacher. My favorite teacher, Mr. Bevilacqua. So when they came to school the next day, everybody's windows broke except for his. They're like, well, okay, well, why is that? And it kind of, when they finally got to me, they're like, well, why didn't you break his windows? That's not like him.
Wait, so how did they know it was you that did it?
I forget. It's so long. I mean, they figured it out some kind of way, probably because I probably said something. I don't know. But they sat me down. They said, we have one question. You broke every window in this grade. Why didn't you break those? I said, I like Mr. Bevilacqua.
Mr. Bevilacqua? Is that
Yep.
So why'd you like Mr. Bevilacqua? Because he treated you well?
Remember, but I just remember him being nice to me.
That's cool.
He was nice enough that I didn't break his windows. I heard him from somebody who was nice to me.
Hey, Mr. Bevilacqua, if you're listening, good job. So 14, why'd you get arrested when you were 14?
I was a freshman in high school and I beat up the senior class president.
Wow. For what reason?
Well, people have a hard time believing this. I was like really short. I was like 5'1" when I started high school. And I'm in freshman year and we're in the cafeteria and this girl came in with like a bunch of kids and she was like, hey, she tried to take my chair. I'm like, I don't know you. And she was like, give me your chair. I'm like, what are you talking about? And my friends were making fun of me because she bullied me for my chair. So as she was leaving the cafeteria, I walked behind her and I stepped on her shoe. And she like beat it. And I did it again. And the 4th time I did it, she turned around and punched the shit out of me.
Oh.
I'm like 5'3". She's like 5'8", 5'9".
Yeah.
And what I didn't know was she was a senior class president.
Oh.
So she's a senior class president. She had some exchange students with her. And she brought me to the cafeteria. In her mind, she's the boss of the school.
Right.
I'm a freshman who doesn't go to class. Like, I don't know who you are. So but she was a big girl though. Like I said, softball, basketball, everything. She turned around and just punched me in my face.
Oh.
Then she punched me and punched me. She just kept punching me.
Wow.
And I went to like state of shock. Like, oh my God. Then one of my friends were like, Dre's getting his ass whipped. I said, that's me. So I just hit her with an uppercut and a hook, and she just hit the floor.
Oh, no way! I'm sorry, it's not funny. It's kind of funny.
You look at me now, you're like, yo, I'm 6'2", 270. I was like, I remember when I got arrested, I was 5'3", about 130 pounds.
And so you knocked out the senior class president because you were being a little asshole, and she socked you up.
Oh yeah, she's whipping my ass straight up. It's the only time in my life a girl was beating me. She was winning. Had she just stopped and walked away, she'd have had a W.
Oh, yeah. Everyone has a game plan until they get punched in the mouth.
Yeah, it's a game plan to hit back. But I didn't, for the first like 6, 7 blows, I didn't even hit her back. I was just like shocked.
Yeah.
She caught me and like my brain shut down.
That happened. When I was 13, I got punched in the face. It's funny when you get punched in the face. Like it's this weird thing, right?
I'm not expecting it.
Yeah. I wasn't expecting it when I got punched in the face either. Yeah. When people say the Mike Tyson quote, everyone has a game plan until they get punched in the face. I always ask them, have you ever been punched in the face? And like 95% of people have never been punched in the face.
Yeah. I mean, I was just being like the little dummy brother like I do to my sisters at home.
Right.
Punch me. I mean, that's why I'm looking at her like my big sister.
Yeah.
Even though she's not my sister, but I've had this encounter with my sisters. I got 3 older sisters. And when she decided punching me, I would never hit my sister back.
Right. But your sister probably wouldn't have socked you up like that either.
But at the same time, it was like, that's what's running through my mind. It wasn't until I bumped into the wall and somebody said, Andre's getting beat up, did it occur to me that I'm even in a fight.
Wow. Yeah, because it happened so fast, right? She just dude, getting punched in the face a couple times can happen in like 2 seconds.
Yeah, she was just like bang, bang, bang. I'm like, you in a boxing club too?
she's like captain of the boxing team.
She's captain of the basketball team, the softball team, the swimming team, and she's a popular girl in school.
Yeah. She didn't fuck around, man. She's like, why is this little guy messing with me? So you got arrested. You go to juvie?
I ended up going to juvie. They arrested me, took me to court. They gave me juvenile probation for like 3 years or 4 years, whatever it was.
Wow. So you're on probation. You're like 14, which is, and so what happens next? How do you end up actually going to jail?
What happens next is, up until then, I've never really been arrested.
Right.
They had me on juvenile probation and like a little cleanup crew. So now I'm hanging out with all the real criminals.
Oh, yeah.
Really on probation for carrying guns and doing a bunch of other stuff. So the more I'm around them, the more I learn.
Oh shit! So you're like just doing like little stupid kid shit, and they're like, "Hey, we know what to do. Let's take this kid and put him around a bunch of really, really fucked up kids, and then you become what your environment is, right?"
Exactly. That's what happened.
Oh man! So those kids were just ahead of you. That was it.
Yeah, once I got in that track, it just expedited my path down that road. And then I just kept getting in more trouble until the judge said enough is enough. And they put me on that bus to the penitentiary.
How old were you when that happened?
18.
Fuck, man. Did you work any legitimate jobs during that time?
Not really.
Were you just hustling?
Jobs, but I mean, not really, no.
And so let me ask a question. So you said your parents split. How old were you when your parents split?
First grade, so probably like 8 or 9.
So was your mom just raising the kids, or were you involved with your dad, or what?
My mom took care of it.
So your mom's basically like, dude, I can't even imagine having 6 kids and me one person, right? Like that's like crazy. So your mom's just like overwhelmed. She's like, whatever, like I can't handle this, right?
She did her best, but best is not always. Like I said, 6 kids. We're all like 1 year apart. So there's 3 girls in a row, skip a year, and 3 boys.
It's like Lord of the Flies, man.
We were in.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, so, David Zellman, right?
Yeah.
Dr. Z. And so he and I were talking about this because my dad was a crazy fucker. He's like, and I was talking to him about, I was doing some coaching with him. He's like, maybe that's the best he could do, man. And he's like, what if that's the best your dad could do? And I was like, I never thought about it like that, right? Because it's easy to kind of point the finger, right?
I mean, it might be the best that she could do or the best that he can do. I mean, at the end of the day, it's still jacked up.
Yeah. It doesn't wash the sins clean. So is your mom still alive?
Mom and dad are still alive.
Do you have a relationship with them?
Yeah, I speak to them.
And so, out of all your siblings, did anyone else end up on the same track as you?
My youngest brother went to prison. He did 27 years.
Damn. And so wait, 3 boys, 3 girls, you said? 3
girls, skip a year, 3 boys.
And you and the youngest end up in prison. The other 4, no?
No.
They're fine. Okay, so they figured out how to not end up in prison.
Right.
So, and do you think that it was that your brother saw like the track you were on and just kind of followed you, or he just whatever? Same.
We were left to our own devices. Me and the younger brother was like, okay, my mother raised the first 3, and my older brother kind of got into that loop, and it was just me and my brother were like on the tail end.
So you're 18, and what was the straw that broke the camel's back? What did you do that ended?
Home invasion. I used to rob drug dealers.
Wait. So you robbed a drug dealer, and then you got arrested for robbing a drug dealer? Did the drug dealer turn you in? How the fuck does that work?
They called the police. Like,
yeah, he's trying to steal my weed.
They don't say that. I used to go to the suburbs and rob white drug dealers.
Oh, he's trying to steal my baseball cards.
No. I used to go to the suburbs and rob white drug dealers.
So
they weren't have guns. They didn't have pit bulls in their house. They weren't going to put up a fuss. It was more a hobby than a real like they were really in it. They weren't criminals, hardcore. So when you go break into a house, or when people are home, it's home invasion. You go in a house with guns, with white people in the suburbs, they dial 911. And when the police came, they weren't asking about drugs. There was 3 black guys in the house in the suburbs with guns. That's all they knew.
And were you guys just like, I mean, why go into a house with people there? Why not?
I would find, because you know what the drugs are.
Oh, you'd make them go get the drugs for you.
Yeah.
Oh, got it. I'm like, why not just break in when they're not home? Oh, you're like, fuck that. You pull out the gun. And you're like, go get me your shit. Yeah, I'm a quick study. My mom, when I was young, she's like, Darius, please use your brain for good. I come to my mom, I'm like, hey, mom, I have this idea. I tell her some like basically credit card fraud idea. I was like 11. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, drug dealers know where their stuff is. So that's why I rob drug dealers.
So you robbed. So how many times did you get away with it before you got caught?
10, 15. I don't know. I just did it. That was my daily job.
Wow. And so that's how you got your stash. You could basically rob them, take it, and go sell it.
No, I wasn't a drug seller. I robbed people for drugs, money. I wanted their money. If I had drugs, if I got drugs by proxy, I wholesale them. I'm like, yeah, hey, yo, D, take this. Just give me some money. I'm gone.
Oh,
half off, whatever. For the drugs, that is damn near giveaway. This, I come to you like, yo, D, here, take this, give me some money, and I walk away.
Got it. So you're like, all right, drug dealers are not, they're getting paid in cash. You know that. So you're like, all right, these guys.
I came in your house and I took your drugs and your jewelry and your money. I'll keep the jewelry, I'll keep the cash. Then I would go to somebody and just be like, yo, give me X for the drugs one time, and I walk away.
Got it. Okay.
Dealers, and I would go to them in my neighborhood, be like, yo, just give me this, I'm gone.
All right. So at this point, your profession is robbing people for their drugs and not their drugs, but their cash and their jewelry and So 18, you finally catches up to you. 10 or 15 times you do it, gets caught up, catches up to you. You end up in prison, and now you're in the system, dude. Like there's like this, like the slope just got slopier, more slippery.
The slope's gone. Fell off the cliff.
So which prison did you go to?
I went to a place called MCI Walpole in Massachusetts.
And what type of a prison is that? Is that maximum maximum
prison? People there doing forever and ever. There were some guys there that had 30, 40 years in when I got off the bus.
And you were so you're 18 years old. How are you? So when you knew you were going to prison, how did you feel about it?
The thing is the truth is you're kind of prepared for it, because by the time you get to that stage in your life, you've committed enough crimes, you've been in the county jail enough, you've been to court enough, you know it's coming. It's inevitable. You know what I'm saying? It's like, you know it's coming.
So can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So were you just like, fuck it, like I might get killed, I don't like, this is before even going to prison, you're just like, this is just the lifestyle I live, and like I don't know how long I'm going to be alive for? Did you expect, did that
you don't think like that? It's like when you just live. Like when people go to war, they don't think, hey, I'm going to die in 5 minutes, who cares? You go and you do your thing until your time's gone.
So you're just like, I'm just living for today, like it doesn't matter,
like, I'm living for right now.
For right now,
right? I'm not talking about later on, I'm talking about right now.
And was there any part of you that was like, you know, like I actually want to have a better life?
What does a better life look like? So I don't live where you live. So you have to have been exposed to things to want things. So that's like me saying, hey, I want a condo. I want a seaside hotel in Hawaii. I've never been. I don't know what that looks like. I would never fathom and say, Dre, what's something you want? I never say a beachfront condo in Hawaii because I've never been. I don't know what that looks like. What do you want? Well, I want my grandparents, my parents, and my sisters and brothers all to get together for Thanksgiving. I don't know what that looks like. You know what I'm saying? So when you start saying, hey, I should be an entrepreneur, I want to build a business and have 7 figures and 20 staff, I don't know what that looks like. So I know what my environment says. My environment doesn't predict or show that. So it was never a thought to me like, hey, I want a better life. Don't know what this is the life.
So, do you mind if I ask you kind of like, I'm going to take a little bit of a side route here. Do you mind if I ask you kind of a curveball? All right. So there's a big debate right now in the United States around like the system, like systemic racism, the system of like outcomes that creates this outcome we're talking about. And I mean, when you're describing this right now, what I'm hearing is like, dude, you were fucking 8 and this shit started. Shit didn't start when you were like 18.
When I was in the 3rd grade and I failed math and science, the United States of America built a prison cell. because they had a formula that says if a child doesn't pass third grade math and science, they are most likely not going to graduate high school. So you go look, there's 1,000 kids who fail third grade math and science. Those kids, 80% of them will not graduate high school. So now you have 800 kids who are in the streets with no education, no job opportunity, and they're probably like way behind. So what are they going to do to live? Well, 10% of them will go take menial jobs. The rest of them are going to have to hustle some kind of way, which means they're going to eventually get arrested, and we're going to need a cell for them. So they knew when I was in the third grade where I was going to end up when I got 18. It wasn't a secret. Instead of saying we're going to wait 10 years to incarcerate this man at $40,000 a year, why don't we just teach him math and science?
Oh yeah. You don't need it. Like I'm with you 110%. I guess what my question for you is: do you believe in systemic racism then? And do you think that this is
systemic racism? That's wonderful. It's just I'm not going to call it racism. You just don't care about poor people.
Yeah.
There's a contingency in this country who just don't care about if they're poor black, if they're poor white. See, when you say systemic racism, you skip over white people.
Yeah.
People who are living in some rural towns that get treated like shit too.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's not just the black. There's some Native Americans who are on reservations. They're getting treated 10 times worse than black folks.
Yeah. So this is classism then.
So it's classism. It's generally white people in charge, but they're just the poor people who get crossed over. So that's poor white, poor Latino, poor black, and Native Americans.
Yeah.
All get wrong.
I hear you. And so it just so happens that there is a disproportionate number of certain races that fall into the poor category, to your point.
Right. Yeah, definitely.
Right. So if we look at 1 out of 3 African-American men get incarcerated, but only 13% of the population is African-American, that doesn't make sense, right?
But
so
no, it go further than that. 12% of the country is African-American. We'll call it black. If 50% of those are male, you're talking about 6%. It's not 13, 6. And out of the 6, we're going to say 2% of them are either under 12 or over 50. So you're talking about 4% of a nation makes up over 40% of the prison system.
Yeah, that doesn't make it.
13 is 4% makes up 40 to 50% of the prison system.
Yeah.
That's targeting.
That's crazy, man. So, all right, well,
let's go back. Darius, it's not crazy, it's intentional.
Why do you, so explain that.
When you have 4% of the population makes up 50% of your prison system, that's intentional. That's not, that's just the bad numbers. Or it was lucky. You got a lucky bounce or unlucky bounce. When 4% makes up 50% of your prison population, that's intentional. That's not accidental.
So when you say intentional, what comes to mind for me is that we are intentionally putting African-American men in jail.
Yes.
Intentionally meaning that like it is our intention. We like,
yes, I clear English.
Like I'm saying we don't care. I know that, but I'm saying it to myself. Sorry. Okay. Sorry. I'm thinking through. This is part of me being so unscripted. I just think through my things out loud. So okay, good, bad, or indifferent. Our intention as a society is to incarcerate African-American men.
Yes.
And the reason we do that is why?
That's different. We're going to go to the why. Let's go to the numbers. The numbers say it happens. The numbers say right now, 45% of prisoners are black. If you do black and brown, you're talking about 65%. So 65% of your prison system is black and brown. Why is irrelevant? Why is where people get stuck? I'm doing the numbers. The math speaks for themselves. 65% of your prison system is black or brown. So, and it's been that way for the last 50, 60, 70 years. So at some point you say, okay, it's intentional. It's not accidental.
So I take a step back because I've had this debate with people. I'm a moderate. So you're a moderate, by the way, so politically. If your friends who are Republican call you a socialist, and if your friends who are liberals call you a Republican. So I'm moderate, right?
That works.
So because I'm moderate, I get to have a lot of interesting conversations because people don't know what I am, and like my therapist said he thought I was like a hardcore Trump supporter the other day. And I'm like, no, actually, not, right? But my point, what's that?
I got no beef with Trump.
No, I don't like his leadership, but like that's my perspective.
I mean, let's do the history of leadership for who?
Oh yeah, more stylistically.
Bill Clinton, the leadership Bill Clinton did for black folks was like everybody else, 3 strikes and you're out. I didn't like his leadership either.
Yeah, no. Yeah. Policy aside, right? This is more just stylistically, right? I hear you, right? Like, because if you start going again, if we're gonna say let's put everything aside, just go by the numbers, like, man, the numbers aren't good for if you're voting Democrat,
right now, America has 25% of the world's population in prison.
Yeah, so let's go back to your prison experience. So you're 18 years old.
18.
And you're in the slope has went away. You're in the system, and you're in prison for 14 years. Is it that once you're in there, then you're just committing crimes in prison to survive? And
I was convicted twice of attempted murder in prison.
And that's just what? You're defending yourself?
No, I was selling drugs and robbing drug dealers.
In prison?
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Okay. Whatever you were this morning, you're going to be this afternoon. So if I put you on a bus and I flew you to Argentina, you're still going to be you. If I flew you to China, you're still going to be you. Whatever you like, if you like ice cream now, when I fly you to Argentina, you're still going to like ice cream. If blue is your favorite color, you get off the bus in Russia, blue's still your favorite color. I robbed people. I beat up people. Because you put me in prison, what did that do? Change me?
Yeah, but it's probably more competitive, I would assume.
More competitive, exactly.
you're around a lot more guys with your skill set, right?
No, competitive or not, it's what you do.
So you're in there, you're like, look, I know what I know. I know how to rob people. I know how to steal shit from people, and I know how to beat the shit out of people when I need to get what I want.
Prison's the best place to be if that's what your skill set is.
Those are probably highly sought after skill set there, yeah.
So let's just take a prison, because I do math. Let's take a prison with 2,000 people and make 50% of them drug addicts, which is a really small number. That's 1,000 people. A bag of heroin costs $50. So if I can sell a bag of heroin to every drug addict, that's 1,000 drug addicts times 50. That's $50,000 times 7 days is $350 times 4 weeks is $1.4 million in heroin sales. That's they can only get one bag a day. That's just they literally had a drug bust a couple months ago, $20 million drug ring.
In prison.
$20 million drug ring.
Wow. So you're making money in prison, essentially selling drugs and stealing drugs from people.
Yeah.
And so
you think people are inside fighting for colors, for gangs? No, they're fighting over contraband. Who controls the contraband? That's it.
So you're in there doing like this sounds like a crazy environment, and I mean I guess it's just a version of what your outside environment was, but now you have a much more concentrated group of drug addicts, criminals. Like it's just a different, more of a. What's that?
It's the best of the best. You might be the best guy at your high school in basketball, then you get on campus at U Michigan and you're trash. You might be the best guy at U Michigan. You get to the NBA and you're trash. You get to your team, you might be the best guy on your team. You get to the All-Star team, and Michael Jordan's looking like, who are you? You're trash.
Right.
You get to the Hall of Fame, you're trash. There's level above you.
So at what point when were you there that you got into solitary?
I was in jail for 6 years. I got 2 attempted murders. They put me in solitary. And while I was in there, I was a 3rd-ranking gang member in the state. And I had a chance to become number 1. And at that point, I realized that I was the king of nowhere.
Wait. They actually had rankings?
Yeah.
Like you were number 3 in the state of Massachusetts for number 3, like highest ranking gang member? As in like you're like the boss. Like there's only 2 guys above you?
Exactly.
Oh, got it. So it was basically like what did you have a title or like a captain or something like that?
No, we don't do titles, but they know who you are.
Sorry, I was watching Sopranos.
It's kind of look at boxing, the pound for pound best. So when Tyson was fighting, he was pound for pound best. Then there's somebody under him and somebody under him and so forth and so on.
Were you gunning for number 1? Or were you
all day.
Who was number 1?
There was a guy named Dominic Williams.
And you're like, how do you become number one?
Prison status is based on the work you put in, how many people you beat up, how many people you stab, stuff like that.
No way, man. So
what's the difference between Karl Malone and Michael Jordan? One got rings, one don't. Karl Malone was a beast, but he ain't got no rings.
So
Charles Barkley was phenomenal. He ain't got no rings. If you ain't got no ring, they gonna climb you. Patrick Ewing, all-time great, ain't got no ring.
Man, I love this comparison. These are crazy. So you're 24 years old, 2 attempted murders, number 3 in the state, gunning for number 1. Boom, you're in solitary.
I'm in solitary for the 2 attempted murders, and then I realized I'm the king of nowhere. And I said, hey, it was like, yo, is this really what I want? I'm the king of nowhere. And in my mind, it made sense. If you ever watched Mike Tyson interview in 2020, 2021, he'll tell you that's a whole different person. I believed the hype, and I believed the hype too. I believed the hype of being this mythical character. So instead of being a person, I was a mythical character, and I played this role that I was designed to play, and it took me nowhere. And no different than Mike Tyson crashing in the boxing world, I crashed out in prison. I said, yo, I'm the king of nothing. This means nothing. Because know why it meant nothing? I wasn't a person. I wasn't whole. I didn't love Andre. I didn't have any purpose or principles. I just lived by this code that was made up by somebody else I never even met.
Did you find that from within? That just came from within?
I got it on my own. Yeah. I came to a point of realizing that if I do this last thing, it's going to make me number one. I had a chance to hurt some people, would have made me number one. And in that space, I saw what number one really was. It was nothing. It was all make-believe. When you're chasing it, it seems like something great. And once you get it, you realize, this is it.
Wow, they call that. There's a book about that called The Second Mountain. So you got to the top and you're like, this view sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's funny, man. Like a lot of people do that. I did that, man. I built a big company. I got to the top and I'm like, this isn't what I want.
But same idea. You were focused.
Like laser focused.
Exactly. So it's the same thing in prison. I was laser focused. You ignored some family members. You ignored some vacation. You skipped over some other stuff. No, I got to get this top of this mountain. Then when you got there, like, the view sucks.
Yeah, I was
top of my mountain said, this view ain't it. I don't want to live here for the rest of my life.
So, but now you get out. So 2 years in solitary. I mean, what is that like?
24 hours a day, 7 days a week in a cell by yourself. And once I realized that I was laser focused on the wrong thing. Once I realized that I didn't want to be that, I had to come up with something else. That was the hard part. Well, if I'm not going to be the number one guy in prison, what am I going to be? Then I said, I started looking around. I said, I want to be successful. I don't want to be here. So I said, how do I become successful? I said, I go to college. I picked Harvard University. I said, I go to Harvard, be successful, end the story. I got laser focused on that.
Wait. So you're in solitary when you make this decision?
Mm-hmm.
You're like, I'm going to go to Harvard.
I'm going to Harvard.
But let's just back up for a second. Like, can you read and write and all that stuff at this point? You're like, you can't even read or write at this point.
Not well. But see, here's the thing. I had a conversation this morning with a guy owns a really super successful law firm. He says, Dre, how does this work? I said, first you set a goal. Don't look at your limitations. First you set the goal.
Yeah.
I set the goal, Harvard University. Then I went back. I said, now what's inside of me that's stopping me from achieving that? Then I fixed those things. I became educated. I became fluent in the law. I became articulate. I became self-regulating. I became, a whole person. I became a focused person. Those are things that I was missing. But first, I set the goal. Then I correct myself. Because if I say I'm going to Harvard, I need certain things.
Right. So let me back up. So you're like, how long were you in solitary for your 2 years total? But at what point did you make this decision?
I had 18 months in solitary. I had 6 months left. And I came up with that decision.
So for the first 18 months, what were you just like like
I was still selling drugs. I was still extorting people. I was still running my business.
in solitary?
Yeah.
But how'd you do that if you can't talk to people?
Who said we couldn't talk to people?
Oh, I don't know. I thought in solitary.
Back in the 90s, you used to be able to get phone calls. So I would call, like, they used to have these 1-900 party line numbers. I don't remember the party lines.
I remember party lines. Wait.
You call the party line. I would call, you would call, all the gang would call the party line Saturday night at 6 o'clock. Then you could press like 5 and you get a private room.
Oh, it's like Clubhouse.
It is now. You get private rooms on Clubhouse?
Yeah, you can do private rooms on Clubhouse.
So yeah, well, back in the 90s, they had the party lines. You call the party line and everybody would press, I don't know if it's 5544. They'd give you a private room and it'd be the whole gang in the private room. We handle our business.
So how did you do that from solitary though?
I get the phone. I get access to the phone.
Oh, you get access to the phone. So you have phone, but you can't physically be around people.
They would bring the phone like once a day. So we knew on certain days, like on the weekends when most of the guards and the investigators were off, we do our party line calls.
Wow. Okay. So you're running. I can't believe you're running a drug ring from a party line in maximum security prison. This is fucking crazy story. So 18 months. So if you're doing all that, at what snapped? Did you just sort of like this is a one-way trip to nowhere?
Well, it's like I call it a Wizard of Oz moment. When I was about to do my thing, you go back and watch the Wizard of Oz, Dorothy and the crew land in Oz. They're running down the Yellow Brick Road trying to find the wizard to get the magic key to get out of there. When they finally get to the kingdom, they get to his throne. Toto pulls the curtain back, and it's this little guy pulling levers. So that's how I felt when I got to my end of the road to the castle. It's my turn to be boss. I pull the curtain back, and it's like a little guy pulling levers. I'm like, what is this? But this is the thing about the Wizard of Oz. Everybody in Oz was okay with it. Right. There's not one person in Oz who had a problem with living in the whole thing was fake.
So you have the moment, you're like, all right, I'm done. I'm going to set a new goal. My new goal is I'm going to change my life. I'm going to go to Harvard. Right.
Right.
And so you get out of solitary 6 months later. What happens? Everyone's expecting the old version of you or what?
The last 6 months I started going to GED classes. So I started going to school in solitary and I got out. I kept going to school. And people were waiting for the old Andre. He just never showed up.
And did people try to like fight you or get you to come back or any of that stuff? Or
what? I kept going to programs. Then what? The best way I can imagine is explain this. Imagine me being Mike Tyson, and I say I don't want to fight no more, and I don't want to sell drugs no more, but I can fight like hell, and I'll chop your head off. So who in their right mind is going to go poke Mike Tyson and say, "Hey, do you really want to go to school?" The best thing is your face smashed in.
Yeah, so, I don't know. Like, is that I mean, probably not most people, but there might be some people.
No, people. One time, I was at a prison. I'm going to programs every single day.
What do you mean by programs?
Anger management, GED, self-help groups, NA, AA. I'm going to programs every single day.
And are you doing that? Are you doing that because you're like, if I do this, I know this is how I get out? Or are you doing this because it's going to actually help you, or a combination of both? What do you think?
Okay, there's two things. You can do programs to get out, which is a minimum effort you have to put out. You can do programs to stay out, which is what I did. I took programs to learn how to stay out. I didn't need them to get out. I needed to learn how to stay out. And so, guy asked me one time, "Why do you keep going to these programs, Greg?" He said, "You're the smartest guy in this prison." He said, "You don't need a program." I said, "Dude, I need to go. My father, bad relationship, got me twisted. I'm always angry." And he kept challenging me about it. I said, "Listen, I'm going to programs tomorrow. And there's two options. Option one is I can go down in the unit, I can get my knife, come back here and stab you in the face. Or option two is I can just go to programs tomorrow and talk about why my dad and me had a bad relationship. So I can talk about stabbing you in the face. I can talk about me and my dad's relationship. You pick it. But either way, I'm going." And the guy was like, "Oh, man, that's messed up. You and your dad don't get along. You need to go fix that." I'm like, "Ooh."
So you get out 2 years out of, so 2 years in solitary, 6 years prior, so 8 years in, and you're there for another 6 years before you get out.
Yeah.
What happens during those 6 years?
I go to every class. I go to every program. I start designing programs. I start joining groups. They call it scared straight, but we didn't scream at kids. We went to the youth programs. I started participating in positive stuff. My change gave other people the permission to change because my status made it okay for them to do
it. Internally, in prison.
In prison. I wrote a book.
See it, man. Oh, yeah. Did you write that?
It was mainly written in prison.
Wow. So you wrote your book while you were in prison?
Most of it. I wrote the manuscript in prison.
Yeah. So at what point did you realize you were like, I'm going to get out? How much more time did you have left before you thought you'd get out?
I was getting out when the day I said I'm going to Harvard. And the day I was going to Harvard, in my mind, I was getting out because I couldn't have a dream and think I was staying.
Right. So that you're 7.5 years in. You're like, I'm going to Harvard. It takes you 6.5 years from that point till they parole you.
I was 6 years in. It took me another 8 years to get parole.
6 years, but 6 years in when you had the realization, or 7?
6 years in when I had the realization.
Oh, got it. Okay.
I did another 8.
So 8, and during the time you're like, I'm fighting for something. You're like, I'm gonna get out of here. Mm-hmm. So walk me through the day you found out you're gonna get out. How long before? When was that?
I went to the parole board April of 1999, and they sat in there and they told me I could go home. They said, you can go home, Andre. We're going to let you go by the end of the month. Go back. And they approved me to go home. So I go back to the unit, and then I'm supposed to leave the prison I'm in, which is a medium security prison, be transferred to a minimum security prison, do like 4 weeks and go home. So I go back to the unit. They hold a hearing the next day, classification, and they see the parole decision. They classify me to the lower security so I can be released. So I'm like, I'm going home. I'm like, I go to the parole. They said, yeah. I submit it. They said, yeah. I'm out of here. Then 2 days later, my move to minimum security was denied.
By who?
I went out to see the director of classification. I said, dude, I got my parole. I got my classification to lower security. Why did you deny my move? He said, you're too dangerous to let out. You tricked them. I'll never let you go to minimum security.
No, this was the director in the prison you're in?
Director of classification for that prison.
How did he not know?
Time.
Say that again?
The director of classification at that prison, who had known me my entire 13.5 years.
Yo, he must have seen you change. He must have seen that you changed as a person.
Yeah, well, he saw me, but he didn't believe in the change.
You know what, man? It'd be one thing if you had changed like 6 months before, and this is like 6 years of you behaving. 8 years of you like on the straight and narrow, right?
But I'm still in prison. I had a CO pull me up one time. So I asked him, why do they keep harassing me when I'm doing so good? I'm minding my business. I'm going to school. I'm doing this. He said to me, Dre, he said, you see that guy over there? I said, yeah. He said, he's a gang member, and they are scared of him because he's out of control. You see that guy over there? Gang member. They're scared of him because he's out of control. And he pointed about 10 people out around the yard. He says, now who do they listen to? He said, they all listen to you. He said, so who do you think the administration is more scared of? The 10 individuals who could act up, or the one person that can send them all into a rage with a snap of a finger?
Wow.
He said, they'll never let you outlive who you are.
Wow.
He says, as long as you control them, they got a problem with you.
That's fucked up.
I couldn't denounce my control.
Well, and here's the deal, man. Like, is prison really about rehabilitation? Absolutely not.
No, never been.
No.
The prison's designed to lock up like poor people who happen to be black.
Yeah.
And so the people out there, the goal is not to rehabilitate you. It's to reform your mind to mush so you come back.
But yeah, so this is the whole penal system for people to get paid. You know, this is the capitalism of penal.
$50 billion a year to run that system. Just the prison end. If you add the court and the policing, you're up to almost $500 billion to run the criminal justice system. $500 billion opposed to teaching a third grader how to do math and science.
Yeah, when you start throwing numbers like that out, it's like, okay, we spend $500 billion for that. We spend $800 billion for the military. That's $1.3 trillion per year for what? To like, seriously? That's fucking crazy, dude.
But the military, you can argue for.
I agree.
$500 million to incarcerate people.
That's crazy.
$500 billion.
Yeah, $500 billion. Hey, listen, I have an idea. Instead of us running $1 trillion deficit, why don't we take that $500 billion and spend it on making sure people aren't poor, making sure kids come up the right way, counseling, drug, rehabilitation.
You can manage the problem or you can fix the problem.
Yep.
Managing the problem for a long time.
Yeah.
The problem they created.
The
problem they created, they're managing.
Yeah, that's fucking crazy. So how'd you get out?
I finally went to court like too many times. It took me 6 months of fighting, and they finally forced him to release me. They were forced to release me. They did not want to release me. And I'm more upset about a lot of stuff, but not the last 6 months. As mean as they sound, I earned that. That was based on my behavior for many years.
Mm-hmm.
They just pick my name out of a hat. I don't think they do this to everybody. No, am I defending the Department of Corrections? My name wasn't picked out of a hat. No. I stuck my name on the wall and it's like, yo, F you. So when it came back around, I'm a firm believer. You got to take it the way you gave it.
Right.
So it's unfair, it's unprofessional, but my name wasn't picked out of a hat. I put my name on that wall.
Yeah, no. You do number 3 in the state.
Yeah.
You climbed that mountain.
My goal was simple. I started prison, parole office, youth center. 90 minutes after I got out, I'm at a juvenile center talking to little black boys. I told them, you're going to jail not because you're black, not because you carry a gun. Somebody's disappointed you to let you down and you act out because you don't know how to control your emotions. I'm going to teach you how to control your emotions. And I started teaching young black boys how to control their emotions. Then they asked me to come work with the girls. I started teaching the girls how to control their emotions. Then they asked me to go to a white school like where you went. I'm like, white kids got it good. They don't have no problems. White kids do drugs. They smoke pot. They drink. They have sex. They don't pass all their classes. They got bullies. So I started working with white kids. Then I started working with the people who work with the kids. And I started working with the companies. And I started working with countries. And I just kept going. I was like, yo, if you call me, I'll show up.
So, yeah, let's talk about that. So are we talking about the Academy of Hope? Is that what that is?
Oh, yeah. So
before we go there, though, because you're a fellow from Harvard now, I want to hear about that.
Well, I came home and I started working. I became the #1 outreach worker in the city, and then the region, and the state, and then around the country. And I started doing all this wonderful stuff. Worked in Honduras, Guatemala, Costa Rica, Saudi Arabia, Australia, West Africa, Sweden. I'm just working. I'm doing my thing. And then Ferguson happened.
Right.
Ferguson happens, and the whole world is like, oh my God, it's on shutdown. And nobody could actually penetrate the Ferguson scenario. So when I got called to go to Ferguson, it was some EOers actually from St. Louis who asked me to come in. I was going to Ferguson to fix that. And then Harvard partnered up with me. I knew a lot of people at the school. I've given lectures there. And Harvard wanted to partner up with me to be part of the solution. That's why I got my fellowship. Then I went into Ferguson. I did my work. And then when I came out of it, okay, job well done, clap your hands. But then I was missing something. So I went back to Ferguson, and I ended up talking to Michael Brown Sr., the father, because I spent all that time in Ferguson, never talked to the family.
Mm-hmm.
I went back and talked to the family, and I helped Michael Brown Sr. I became his mentor.
Wow.
So I literally talked to him I talked to him yesterday. I talked to him like a couple times a week. Because at the end of the day, regardless what you think or what side you're on, his son is dead.
Yeah.
So take out the politics, take out the criminal justice, father with a dead son. That hurts. So yeah. I speak to him about hurt. I don't speak to him about politics and justice. I speak to him about pain and hurt. And I've been mentoring him around pain and hurt for like the last 5 years.
Wow, man. So, man, what a fucking crazy story. I knew this was going to be a crazy story, but I'll be honest with you, Andre. I tend to like to come into these conversations cold so I can learn so this is like I didn't know any of your story. I knew a little bit. I knew a bit. I knew that you had served time in prison, and I knew that you had done some amazing things out of prison, but I didn't know any of that. That's the extent.
I run a prison now.
Really?
2 years ago, they had a riot in South Carolina, and 7 people got murdered at one time. And then they locked the entire prison system down because the gang leaders were killing each other. And for 5 months, the entire prison system was locked down, and they didn't know what to do. So somebody said, hey, there's this guy, you might want to get him. So they called me and asked me to come to South Carolina. And you have a lot of people who will say, hey, I was number 3, I was number 2, I was number whatever. They said to me, we need you to go in this prison system with 19,000 people who've been locked down for 5.5 months for 24 hours a day and convince them not to stab each other when we open these doors back up.
Wow.
And that's where you separate the people who were and the people who claim to be. I walked into the prison where they had the murders, stood on the ground where they had blood, opened up 290 doors. They came out for the first time in 5 months. And I spoke to them. And I went to 10 prisons in 6 days and spoke to 8,000 prisoners. It wasn't one fight. They all respected what I had to say. They heard what I had to say. And they told the people in the prison, we want to work with him. That's the guy we'll work with. So they asked me to come back and do something. So I said, do this. Give me one unit. Go around your prison system, get all your most problematic, your most violent, your most out of control, and bring them here, and I'll work with them. So we opened up the Academy of Hope 2 years ago. And in 2 years, we went from 7 dead bodies on the floor to 1 fist fight.
Wow.
But it's the first time where they've allowed former gang leaders to actually run a unit. It's always some criminal justice professional or retired cop who wants to come in. And it's not that they don't know. They don't have relationship with the people they're trying to help.
No, it's a subordinate relationship at best, and there's no empathy, there's no street credit, like they don't know.
So my question to you would be this: if we went to whatever country and you got snatched up by an extremist group, and they snatched you, they kidnapped you, and they threw you in the basement, how many years would they have to hold you before you trusted them?
I don't know.
No, listen. How many years would they have to hold you before you trusted them? Keyword, trust them.
Probably I would never trust them.
And that's what you got in the American prison system. You've gone into the community, you've snatched people up, you've taken them to court, United States of America, state of Tennessee, state of Florida versus Darius. You throw you in a prison cell with a bunch of other people down there saying, trust us. It'll never happen.
Never. No way.
That's why our system is not getting better, not because the people who are running it are bad people.
No.
People who are running it and the people who are in it don't have relationship.
So Academy of Hope is all about building relationships. And so tell us, tell us a little more about that. So you guys are going into the prisons and basically
we get all the leaders together and we teach them and we show them how to be the best versions of themselves and how they control what happens in the prisons, not the guards, not the media, not the politicians. Gang leaders control prisons, period. I don't care because I know from solitary, I ran mine. They're running them, they're in general pop. And it was probably 3 months ago. In one of the units, not ours, the lieutenant got into a beef with a guy. The guy picks the lieutenant up, slams him to the ground, and he starts stabbing him. He's trying to kill him. And the lieutenant zones out, he's done. He's just waiting to die. And one of our graduates was on the unit. He ran over and he saved the lieutenant's life, pulled the guy off him.
Wow.
And he stood and got stabbed 5 or 6 times to save the lieutenant. And when they said, well, why did you do that? He said it was the right thing to do.
Wow.
And that's what we teach, the right thing to do. 3 years ago, he'd have stood by minding his business, and you'd have had a dead lieutenant on the floor.
Yeah.
But I had a CO at the county jail told me this one time. He said the worst can be the best if you just give him a chance.
Yeah.
And we gave that man a chance, and when the time came, he showed that he could be the best. There's nothing better than saving a life.
I love it, man.
So there's some people who want to see change. There's some people who don't.
So how can the community that listens to this help you, make this cause a bigger cause?
I mean, a few things. One, we want to take Academy Hope to more prisons. So if you know a governor of a state, they can get us into the state system. If you know a sheriff that runs a county jail, they can get us into the jail system. If you know the president of the United States, then he can get a whole bunch of shit done.
Yeah. Hey, Sergio Fernandez de Cordova, you just heard he knows Biden, so I need to connect you with him.
Let's make it happen.
And I'm going to connect you with Kunal Sood, who's at the United Nations. So you guys,
if we want to fix the dilemma of Black Lives Matter, which is the social unrest in America, one, you can't overlook prisoners. In the 70s and the 60s and the 50s, it was political prisoners. You had no protection because it was all white police force, all white juries, all white DAs. Every time you go to YouTube and type in exonerated black man, and a fucking thing will just go crazy because there's been hundreds of people released for crimes they never committed. But in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s, with all white juries, all white police forces, all white judges, nobody was like, you can just go ahead. I got this. We need this one. And there was a lot of that going on.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? In the 40s and the 30s, they just hung you. But when they got past it, they just couldn't hang you no more. They just had to wink, blink, send them to jail. So there's a lot of people, this type of exonerated black men. And they're coming out, YouTube will go crazy.
So let me ask a question. So where can people find you? Because I'm going to make some connections for you, but where can people find you? Let's kind of drop this.
You can go to my website, andrenorman.com, and send me an email.
Okay. So you guys heard that, andrenorman.com. Hit up Andre. You go by Andre or Dre?
Both.
I like Dre. I'm gonna call you Dre.
You can send an email. The email is ceo@andrenorman.com.
You guys heard that. ceo@andrenorman.com. You guys could check out Academy of Hope, andrenorman.com. Man.
I'll give you a video and you can attach it to this thing. They can see the work that we do in real time.
Yeah, we're gonna put that in the show notes. So you guys check out the show notes. I'll get that link from Andre and his team. We'll put that on social as well. But go check out andrenorman.com, Academy of Hope. Let's get him connected in all the right places so we can make these changes because gosh knows this country, we need to see these changes happen, man. And I love that you're doing it.
We're in a place now where white folks and black folks are in a space and want to have a conversation. So I've been working with a lot of white companies, a lot of white families, a lot of folks just, Andre, I had once today, the guy was like, well, how do we help? What does that look like? What is enough? What's not enough? How come what I'm doing is not enough? And I explained to him, if you've ever driven off a highway ramp and there's a guy out there begging for change, how much is enough for you to give him? How much could you give him for him to say that that's enough? There's no limit. You can give him all the money in your wallet and he'll still think, I could use more.
Right.
You give him your money, your wife's money, your kids' money, and he says, I can use more. The problem is there's no relationship.
Right.
With no relationship, there's no such thing as enough.
Yeah. So it's about respect, trust, building a relationship.
It's about the relationship. That's when if you have no relationship, there'll never be enough.
Right.
It has to be a heartfelt thing, not just a check a box thing.
Yeah.
It's enough when it comes from the heart. When you're doing it to check a box, there'll never be enough.
Yeah. I love it, man. Oh man. We're at the end of the time here. That flew by. We could probably go another hour. Andre, my brother, thank you so Dre. You call me D, I call you Dre.
D, it's in the bill. I tell you what, if your people hit you up and it's like, yo, we need part 2, we'll do part 2.
I love it, man. I love it. Dude, this has made my day. I appreciate you, my brother. This has been awesome. Like so much knowledge to be dropped here. I can't wait to make introductions to the people I know who are doing some cool things that can hopefully, take what you're doing and really help spread it. Guys, if you can, again, hook up at andrenorman.com or email Andre at ceo@andrenorman.com. Let's get this type of conversation needs to happen more in this country. And I appreciate you, my friend. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Appreciate you, man. And listen, the greatness machine is here.
Boom. Love it. All right, guys.
We're on. Are they getting on the machine too?
They got to do it, man. You got Deuce here. Guys, thank you guys so much. Appreciate you, Andre. We're out of here. Peace, everybody.
Peace.